Who is this? How old is this? This David?
First of all, you've been rooting through something. I
Yep.
don't know, but that's obviously early days. So I don't know, 10,
Okay.
8.
10. And you look at this site.
So
Where is this?
That's Montgomery, Alabama. That's the state capital.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up, in Montgomery, Alabama.
Yep. So for those who need a geography.
That's helpful because it's kind of a blur for most people below Washington, D.C. So.
Yeah, and then this is old Montgomery. This is the business courthouse. I don't know, anything happened there?
Obviously, quite a bit as relates to the civil rights in the 50s.
Yeah.
So.
And when you were growing up in the 60s and 70s, were you aware of that history at that time?
So when you say growing up in the 60s, I was 7.
Yes.
Well, when the 60s ended.
I
so I just want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Like,
you're timeless. You're 25 in my book.
So obviously the overlay of what happened in Montgomery, Alabama was extraordinary because Rosa Parks famously led the bus boycott in the early 50s, and that began part of the movement that really initiated what became, the civil rights.
And then what's this image? This is the end line?
That's the march in Selma. So that's Martin Luther King. Selma is about 20 minutes away from Montgomery.
Yeah, so you grew up being aware of that history right down the street. Okay, roads. I think it was part of Turkey, but it's now sort of Greece. What significance does this map have to you in your life?
Well, when anyone hears my last name and it's virtually unpronounceable, this is what the reason is, because my grandfather came from Rhodes in the turn of the century, and today our name Mussafer. But when my grandfather came to this country, he was one of 14. It was Mussafer. And so he actually didn't come through Ellis Island. He came through Boston, but they would ask your name. They didn't have a lot of paperwork. And each of his siblings ended up spelling their name differently. So if you Google Mussafer, you come directly to me or my sister or my grandparents because it's a made-up name. But it began as an immigrant. So my grandfather came to this country. One of them came to this country at the turn of the century. My other grandfather.
All right, this is the other grandfather, right?
This is the other grandfather. So Julius S. Marks, but known to everyone as Bubba. Bubba was a cotton farmer outside of Memphis, Tennessee. And so my mother grew up just...
Is that in Alabama?
So Tennessee is
north.
I don't know, John. I'm helping you here.
Yeah.
So Memphis is in that Mississippi River Delta, obviously, and very fertile farming ground. But this next picture...
This is 3 generations, right?
It's a very important picture. This was last summer. So my father was ill for 5 years, but said, I am coming to... The tall guy on the side there is my son with the beard, his wedding. And so this was really amazing, special. So
take a moment, we're going to get into your leadership. When I first met you, you were like, yeah, I travel a lot, I run a business. You do run a big business, but your dad must have been an inspiration because he ran a business and it was before Costco and before kind of like, what was he doing and how did that maybe influence you or shape you?
I'm sure each and every one of you were heavily shaped by your parent, someone of your family. But Dad was a big part of my life, so real inspiration. Dad started one of the first, he was an entrepreneur. So he started a single store in 1960 that was one of the predecessors to Walmart or Costco. So it was a big box. It was more than 100,000 square feet, and they sold discount. Instead of full price, it was offering a membership club. So it was before Costco. They had you join as a member, and then that gave you access to these discount prices.
Did you sweep the floors? Did you ever work at the cashier register?
So that was a formative part. So every summer and Christmas, I worked in the store. So the business, 100,000 square feet, sold jewelry in the middle, toys in the back right, electronics in the back left, and housewares in front. And, you know, like most parts of the economy was basically taken apart by the evolution of other, you know, Toys R Us.
So were you aware that your dad was a disruptor? I mean, this is like Jordan Marsh, but different down south.
No, I wasn't. He
Right.
was just dad.
Right.
He went to
So who's
work,
this?
and that's my mother, Peggy. So she looks like she was in the 1800s. She's 86 years old now and doing fantastic.
And who's she
That's
with here?
Mom with two of our daughters. So Sophie and Olivia, back when they were probably 3 and 4 years old, something like that.
All right. Now who's the guy on the right?
Oh man,
What grade?
you dug deep.
I dug real deep.
Oh my gosh.
You know, we got to understand the guy.
So this is a picture, probably junior high or before, of me and my best friend Jim. So Jim and I went to school 1st grade through 12th grade, and then we were roommates in New York City right after college.
Nice. All right. So both parents, did they meet at this place?
They did. So that's
What are we
that's
looking
an
at?
aerial shot of Tulane. It's hard to recognize, but the strip of the campus, which is really a beautiful place. So my parents met at Tulane. They both went there.
And so did you apply to a bunch of places and decide to go to Tulane, or was it just known growing up that Tulane was where you were going to go?
Well, I grew up in Alabama, and so, you know, there's only one pro team in Alabama.
Yeah.
That's the University of Alabama.
And
so,
how many football games have you been at
so,
University of Alabama?
a lot,
Yeah.
a lot.
10, 50, or 100?
Probably less than 100, but probably more than 50. So,
Okay.
but, so yeah, anyway, my parents
Yeah.
both went to Tulane.
So when you were at Tulane, you got a job here.
I studied finance undergrad. My parents wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, and they were very disappointed that I
Dad
said
didn't
no.
want you to take over the innovative.
No, he said, my God, retail is horrible. It's dirty, long hours. You have to work Christmas, every holiday. For the love of God, do anything but don't do retail.
Yeah. So this is Chemical Bank, for those of you who don't know. Starchitect at the time, Philip Johnson, designed this. This was the place for the most elite finance people coming out of the top schools. And, you know, Tulane's a top school, but were you one of many Tulane grads to work at Chemical?
Well, it was back in the olden days when they had these bank training programs, and I was really fortunate to get a job at one of these. So Chase, Chemical, J.P. Morgan would have these bank training programs where you'd get credit trained, and you would spend 9 months in a classroom while they would bring professors from NYU or Columbia. And so my buddy Jim that you saw was across the street at 270 Park, which is now that brand new J.P. Morgan's tower that they took down. But we could not believe that we were being paid to actually sit through class. So,
but I want to just point out that as a someone from Montgomery, someone from Tulane, you were a little bit rare at Chemical Bank. I mean, is that a
I
stretch?
got lucky to get the job, if that's what you're
but it was-
saying,
no,
John. Yeah.
No, but it was based on merit. But that wasn't their recruiting. That wasn't.
They had a lot of kids from the Ivy Leagues,
So
and
where I'm going here is your aunt was just so proud that you broke through. So I'm just saying that I'm channeling that. All right. So then you went to Wharton Business School. How'd that work out for you? And what jobs did you apply for your second year?
well, I'm in Chemical Bank from 85 to 88. And if you looked at any of the background during this time, this is when the buyout business really boomed.
Bonfire of the Vanities, right? Thomas Wolfe.
The movie Wall Street.
Yeah. Gordon Gekko. Yeah.
But basically every week there was companies that were being bought, and it was the beginning of a very innovative time, a different time. And I remember having this thought where I said to my boss at the time, I said, let me see if I get this straight. If everything in the world goes right, we get our money back plus some interest. And he said, we don't really think of it that way, but continue. And I said, so we're going to lend all this money to these people on the other side that are buying this company. And if it works, that's really going to go well for them. I would really like to learn what they're doing on that other side. And so that was my education. So Alabama to Tulane, Tulane to New York City to banking, banking to, wow, there's something interesting happening. At the time, they called it bootstraps, LBOs. It wasn't called private equity because there was a burgeoning kind of small group of players that were initially doing this time.
So the story I want to just suss out here, which I think is unique, all your Wharton classmates second year were going to job fairs, and they were trying to land a job, but you did not go to those job fairs. What was on your mind, and why did you not?
Well, my wife is sitting here, so she remembers it live. But I had decided I wanted to try to get a job with one of these buyout shops, and the one that I worked at for the summer blew up that fall. And so I made a decision not to interview my second year because I said...
Do you remember this?
She was working at PBS in Philadelphia. And I said, if I interview, I might get a job. And how am I going to, with student loans, and tell my parents that I'm going to turn down a job at whatever, Goldman Sachs or consulting firm. And so I said, I'm not going to interview. And I just networked to try to see if I could find a place to get a job.
Okay, so in prepping for this, I actually didn't realize this. I'm a venture capitalist. Do you know that the term venture capital originally was adventure capital?
So...
And who's this guy, and how did he play a role in your life?
So Peter Brook is the founder of Advent, and Peter started TA Associates in 1968. And Peter was a true pioneer in the investment industry. He began as a classic venture capital. People that don't know it, TA stood for Tucker Anthony, which was a brokerage firm in New England. Peter started a venture shop as part of TA. And then through the evolution, as he was building TA, Peter wanted to build an international footprint, and his partners at TA said, well, that seems like too much effort. Why don't we just focus on doing what we're doing domestically? And Peter said, well, I want to do more. And he spun all the international assets of TA out and created Advent in 1985.
Okay, so this is the early
this
logo.
shows you the level of our marketing savvy.
This is where
that was an early logo.
This is where it started. You
That's
got
Milk
hired
Street.
right
Milk
when
Street.
they moved from here.
Correct. So that was our first
really
office on Milk Street.
And to me, this looks like a punch card. So I don't know if there's...
I don't think we'd give it that credit. That's me. I was interviewing Peter right before he passed away in January of 2020.
So he's the dean of investing in Boston, and you became the heir apparent immediately, or you just worked there and over time?
It was the opposite. I was the young guy on the totem pole, and Peter was incredibly established. And so I had the great fortune of kind of working from the bottom to, helping to shape the firm.
What was his style? Would he have a secretary write a memo to you that he would initial? Did he come into your office? Did he call you on the phone?
Peter was analog.
Golf?
What's that?
Golf?
No. He was analog in that he didn't use a computer. He would dictate memos and have them hand sent. You would go have lunch. You would go meet with him physically. But Peter was an amazing person and a mentor because as an entrepreneur, one, he had vision, but two, he was facile in a broad array of subjects.
Okay, so he set the standard. What are we looking at here? This
is a modern
Peter.
day. This is
fast forward to a few months ago.
This is a partner meeting. Everybody's sitting around the table. So
how many partners at Advent today?
We have about 75 partners.
So
this is a senior partner meeting.
Senior
so
partner,
this is we have about a dozen senior partners.
Is that the seat you always sit in?
No.
Yeah.
Just you sit first come first serve.
Yeah.
So.
But you look like you're the head of the table there.
I don't know how that happened,
Yeah.
so I try
Right.
not to sit at the head.
So is this a recent photo?
No, this is.
Can you tell which is you?
I'm in the horrible yellow
Yeah,
sweater
fluorescent was
there.
popular for a moment
I
if
don't.
you weren't
I
there.
don't think I was
Yeah.
part of the style.
Okay, so Advent today, when you look at this, do you cringe? Are these frenemies? Are these colleagues? Is this
These
Highlander? There can only be one.
No, that's the great thing about the investment business. It's not a zero-sum game. So here in Boston, we've been really fortunate. We have some of the very best investment shops that from all around the world that are resident here in Boston, in part because Peter and some of the other early venture investors began this node of investing. And so between so many great shops.
All right, so tell us about this slide. And for those who are watching this online, you're probably going to pause on this and zoom in. I think one is all the top PE firms and how much they raised in 25. I think the one to the left is 23. But when you see this, what does this tell you? Like, for the audience that may not know the innovation of private equity, this is how much they raise. What percentage of the economy is this? Like, what do you think of when you look at this?
I mean, from the very early days, obviously, when we started in 1990, we were investing $500,000, looking for doing an A/B round, and I joined and started doing small buyouts. But obviously, we've had, as an industry, a tremendous amount of success for a very simple reason, that the industry has generated excess returns over a long period of time.
Actually, look up here. So you have $33.5 billion in this one for Advent, $38 billion. So what snapshot is this? And when you think of those numbers, what comes to mind?
I mean, well, today we have a very deliberate path that we're on. So we're different than a lot of those players. But Advent today, we own 100% of the general partner, and we're collectively the largest investors in our own fund.
Yep.
And so we haven't diversified into private credit or real estate or other infrastructure that's white hot today, but rather kind of focused on what we've done.
And as the head, you probably helped kind of drive the process to come up with that plan, that thesis.
Well, I mean, I think the idea of focusing was what compounded and led us to the point that we are today. So, over time, you simply try to make the next best decision that you can make. And rather than thinking about how we could brand and create more funds, and there are very different groups that have followed that path, we focused and said, what can we do to innovate as a organization to make ourselves better at what we do?
We're going to talk a little bit more on that in a second, but this Prairie, I don't even know who they are, but this is a slide of the history of private equity going way back to the J.P. Morgan senior, not the company. But when you look at this to our audience, what's interesting here? You see RJR Nabisco, and there's.
I mean, I'll tell you what. This
is dynamic.
So John showed this to me 10 minutes ago. But the thing that I took away, you see RJR Nabisco, that was a big moment in the investment industry. So KKR, in very famous fashion, at the crescendo of that, sort of buyout craze, did a $30 billion buyout of RJR Nabisco. And that was at the same time I was just starting at Advent. And I remember I had just done a $30 million acquisition of a toothpick company up in Maine. And I remember thinking, wow.
It's all relative.
This is kind of a big difference. And I remember thinking, okay, well, yeah, we're not there yet. But I said to myself, Well, basically, here's the benefit. So I'm basically operating on a cadaver. So if I hit an artery and we mess up this deal, nobody's going to see this. But KKR, if there's a problem with RJR, they're going to be above the fold in the Wall Street Journal. And so I
Those
just
who
thought
don't read paper, above the fold is when you fold.
that was a top story. That meant you were, that's an
Some
old school
digital natives
expression
here, yeah.
of saying that was, you're going to be front and center a headline. And so I thought about it in that, basically this is our path.
Yeah.
And
So the reason I show this is a big part of the economy is private equity, and you're a firm that has really been a leader and an inspiration, one of the top 5 by a bunch of different metrics in the whole world, and I want to just appreciate the history. So you joined after this. This is the spin out from TA. Your firm went to London. I think you joined in 1990.
Yep.
So went to Frankfurt, Mexico City, Paris. So does that mean these regional offices were doing regional deals?
Yeah. So the approach that we had was, if you went to some other shop, like a more classic group, KKR, Blackstone sort of place, you would have all of the deals and investment committees, at least initially, flowing back up through New York City. And imagine the investment committee that says, we're looking at a deal in Sao Paulo or Paris, and the partner says, but I have to go back to New York to get approval. And basically, you feel like you're, a satellite office.
Yeah.
And I always wanted the feeling to be that you're a partner, you're empowered to make a decision. So we did something unusual. Today, with our flagship fund, and it's currently $25 billion.
You invest in toothpicks?
What's that?
You invest in toothpicks today or no?
So, no, we probably, toothpicks might fall a little below, might have a company that does involved in that. But
Yeah.
the idea was that we've got 4 investment committees that feed into the same fund. And what I want is that we're making the best decisions possible locally. So you're truly empowered to invest part of the fund. We have overlapping members where people are sitting on multiple committees, but the idea that if you really are hiring the very best people and you're learning through the experience of the entire firm, you're going to do a better job making those decisions in the local markets. And so today, that's still a hallmark of how we're set up. And it's partly now, if you meet somebody from our German office in Frankfurt, Rania and Holger, you would think Advent is a German firm.
Yeah.
Or
right. So we're going to come to some of the deals that you've done. So did a famous designer design this? Is this Picasso? Who did this logo? And this was the logo.
That's if you have to be old enough to remember clip art. So that's
so up
that's
to 2
Word.
years ago. This was
That's Word. That's clip art. So we did Advent
on branding.
We did call ourselves Global Private Equity.
Yeah.
So before we kind of created
Your
a little bit of that
predecessor would be
private
proud.
equity name.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that was part of what
Right.
we did.
So when you and I spoke a few weeks ago in preparation for this, you told me 2 stories that really stuck out. One was about seaweed. The other was about AAA sports teams. Can you elaborate on these 2? And then I want to go into a bunch of your deals and have you kind of do postmortems on them.
John asked me about management, and I do think that's the hard part in the investment industry, because if you're really good at investing, your reward is that you're promoted and given management responsibilities. But the management work doesn't necessarily map to success as an investor. And so I think I spent a lot of time thinking about what's the right criteria, what's the right approach to managing a very high performance set of people. So, and the simple analogy is that there is no perfect answer. And I use the metaphor of raking seaweed on the beach, that if you want to have a clear beach, You go that day, make good decisions, work with people, and tomorrow you have to start all over again. It's not a given. There's younger pros that are stepping into the shoes of the pros that were right before them. And so that's the idea, that it just never stops. And so what works great for a while can fall apart in a very short time period. And if you go to the next one, as we're going through metaphors, thinking about baseball. So I'm a baseball fan, and minor league teams. And if you think about players on minor league teams, they're a pretty happy bunch. They take the bus to the game. They get paid very little. They're great teammates, and they're striving to try to make themselves successful. And you contrast that with Major League Baseball players. And they make hundreds of millions of dollars. They may fly on their own plane to the game, and they're horrible teammates for the most part, and seem selfish. Like, how is that? And the point is that what I wanted to do and try to think about is, how do you have that camaraderie and attitude of minor league players, but to be successful, we're going to be in the major leagues, where you have massive amounts of money and incentives and ego at stake. And so what are the things you can do, getting back to raking the seaweed, which is just don't be an ass. Just, don't take yourself that seriously. Just do your job and try to focus on what you can be the very best in the world at, but don't worry about what Gabriel needs to focus on, or Jim. Focus on how you can be great.
I wanted to focus on this is, we saw that slide with all the logos of peer companies. There are so many books that have been written by people who've left those companies, talking about how the leadership, are not fun people to work with, or leading in a way that's not healthy. All the colleagues I know of yours have such respect for the tone you've set, the kind of culture, the values, and I think these two stories, speak volumes about how you approach it and the community you've created.
Well,
right. So Advent by the numbers.
Well, I mean, maybe just this last thing. So it is hard because you're working with people for a long period of time, and you have very vigorous discussions and disagreements about what you should invest in. And I remember thinking, gosh, what if we could create a firm where people actually like working there?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that unusual, but it's not easy as you get to this scale. So obviously this is us today, brand new logo. So we kept the clip art for 35 years. We would have meetings on occasion and say, we need to replace this with some professional work, and then no one could agree on that, and we said we shouldn't be focused on it anyway. But we finally came up and redid Advent. So there are a lot of Advents. There's obviously religious holidays. There's a speaker company. There's
the precursor to venture capital, Venture Capital.
Exactly. So the story of how we got to the name Advent. But today, we're one of the largest singularly focused monoline investment shops, where we've grown to over $100 billion in assets. We have over 600 people and 17 offices around the world, and we've made nearly 500 investments in
All right, so now let's go into your portfolio of activity. So, why do you chuckle at this shot? Is this the one that got away, and what happened because of this?
That's Kevin Plank. So Kevin's the founder, CEO of Under Armour, and in 2003, I had a handshake to buy Under Armour, partner with Kevin, and famously, the deal fell apart for some reason that neither Kevin nor I can remember. It was a strange set of situations where it just somehow didn't work out. And it led us to find another company that was innovating back 20 plus years ago, Lululemon.
Canadian, British
A
Columbia.
quirky company. Imagine the idea that you would have a whole store just focused on yoga wear, which seems crazy at the time. But
Downward dog.
what's that?
Downward dog.
Exactly, exactly. But that's the famous, thing that when one door closes, another one opens.
All right, who's this?
Okay, that is.
And are you wearing the same jacket now in this show?
It's similar, but thank you for noticing.
I mean, that's a
No,
compliment.
I have a number of blue blazers, so you might be surprised at that.
Yeah.
But that's Ken Fisher. So Ken is the founder and owner of Fisher Investments. You probably see these ads on television. And this is going full circle. So I just made that investment with Ken last year. And it's one of the biggest deals we've ever done. We invested $3 billion. We bought a minority position in Fisher Investments. And it was a very quirky situation. So literally, when I began my journey in investing, like a lot of you, I studied everything I could about Warren Buffett in the 80s. And
Do you play bridge?
What's that?
Do you play bridge?
No, I don't
Okay,
play
good.
bridge. My mother plays bridge. But Warren famously plays bridge. But obviously, he cites two books: Security Analysis by Ben Graham and Common Stocks, Uncommon Profits by Phil Fisher. Phil Fisher was Ken Fisher's dad. And so I had read this book in the 80s, and it led me to follow Ken, who is one of the longest running columnists in Forbes. So I followed Ken in the 80s, and that was going way, way back, how I had that relationship.
All right, what are we looking at here?
Those are drones, so we're obviously back full-time to modern day. So that's Brandon Zhang. So Brandon is the CEO of Shield AI, and these are observation drones that are currently being used in the Ukraine to tremendous effectiveness. Taiwan is in the process of potentially utilizing similar technology to monitor the South China Sea. But Shield AI is a next generation defense tech business that we haven't even closed. We've announced this investment. We led a $2 billion investment into Shield AI. And it's a new area of focus for us at Advent as we're moving from traditional industrial investments to things like Shield. Okay, you got shampoo. So you went from Shield to shampoo. So there's no rhyme or reason. Olaplex is an amazing story, but that one, incredible roller coaster. We bought this company, took it public. Very, very briefly, it was worth $20 billion. We just sold the business for a couple of $1 billion to Henkel, which is a German consumer business. But an interesting, quirky investment along the way.
So do you invest in sheep?
No, this is sort of Simmons. So we, like a lot of people, invested in the mattress business. It was not a great investment for us. We had a really interesting ride. We tried very hard, and you learn more from the situations that don't work than you do from the ones that do work. So John knows this. In my office, I have a handful, and they're fittingly called tombstones in this case because they're the worst deals that I've ever done, sitting right next to my desk. And I have a trophy case in the next room over with all of the things that worked. And it's simply to remember.
All right, so this is one that worked.
I don't have this one next to my desk because this was a home run. So this is pasta sauce, Real's pasta sauce. We bought this business a few years back. It ended up being, if you've tried Real's, people love it. It is made with beautiful natural ingredients, and it proves that when you've got a great product, consumers will find that. It was part of Sovos Brands, and we sold it to Campbell Soup last year for almost $3 billion, so that was fun. First watch, welcome to Boston. So on Boylston, right across from our office, we just opened our first one in the Boston area. We've since long invested and sold our position here, but this is a public company today, one that just a nice little business. They're open from 7 a.m. until 2. No dinner. So one shift, and again, really elegant business model where the people that work there can go home to their families and have a really great lifestyle. It's part of, I think, the success of things like this and Chick-fil-A, where they're really focused on some of the other elements.
So before you tell us what's going on in this photo, you just went through a few deals that you've been involved in. What does that constellation say about what you've been focusing on the last few decades, and what that says about the economy? Private equity is an invention, and you've used it to help create return and impact.
Are you asking the question whether there's any rhyme or reason whatsoever to our investing between shampoo and drones but the reality is what makes investing so fun and exciting is that virtually every day you're in an environment where you're learning about something, and you're not just learning it in a cursory manner. When you own something, which means if it goes well or it goes badly, you own that, you're going a mile deep in terms of your knowledge. And so we have focused around sectors, and I've had the great fortune of working in a number of sectors. My heart was always in the consumer space, but having helped and worked with some of the teams in industrial and healthcare and other things.
So this is a Tufts grad, for those who don't know. We have some famous alumni from the region. Who's sitting here? What was this about? Were you... And what's it like, being a captain of industry on the world stage? I mean, this is Jamie Dimon.
Yeah.
And you're in the same sentence as Jamie Dimon.
Yeah. So thank you. Anyway, this was for our 40th anniversary at Advent. So KKR has famously just celebrated their 50th anniversary and done a lot of publicity around that. We celebrated our 40th was it last year? 2 years ago. So we technically started in '84. So this was in 2024. And I asked Jamie if he would speak at our 40th anniversary. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I said, but you got to. I mean, it's a big deal. We want to hear you. So anyway, he was great. He came out, actually spent a couple days with us. We had this in Colorado at our sort of internal session. And Jamie was great. We did a really fun kind of conversation. But I think this part, so right before we started, my daughter had just called 30 minutes before to say that, we'd been waiting on, she was about to have a baby. She was in the hospital giving birth. And anyway, we hadn't even come up with a name. And but my daughter and her husband said, we'll name her Jamie if he'll run for president. That was
Did he
a
take
joke.
the bait?
No, he thought it was hilarious. But anyway, that's obviously great fun to have conversations with people.
Do you ever call him to talk about strategy or the state of the world in terms of private equity? Like, is he someone that you kind of ask for advice or give advice? Does he ask, what's the kind of working relationship, or you just friends and you go about your business?
I mean, I'm not going to give you the inside scoop on all these conversations, but Jamie is terrific. Yeah. And so what I will tell you is that as a public figure, he's the same person privately as he is publicly, and that's really what I think you appreciate with somebody, the authenticity. And so what you see, if you have a conversation, if you're with Jamie for 5 minutes and you're with him privately, he's the exact same person.
So I always go to the JP Morgan event in Davos, and he's standing right there with Tony Blair next to him and Mary, the president, and he shakes everyone's hand. And there are a lot of fancy companies that do these events, but he's front and center and very public. So I got 3 questions for you. on hiring, org chart, and investing. AI is a thing. It was coined in 1955, the term artificial intelligence, by Minsky, who lived not too far from here. He had written a grant to the government to take people up to Dartmouth to think about what the future of cybernetics was. And I talked to him about it, and he said, oh, I called it AI because I thought it sounded scary and the government would pay me for it. He said, I could have called it BI. And a lot of the best AI minds, I talked to them 5 years ago, they said what's happening now was 90 years away. And yet, it's now. A lot of these people said, oh, my kid's kid is going to experience what we're experiencing right now. But it's on a much faster track than I think a lot of people expected. The last 3 months have been pretty amazing. I'm just wondering from where you sit, in terms of this is an image on hiring, this is org chart, and investing. These are all things that Advent does and does really well. How is AI impacting that? And is it part of the conversation as you think about where your company that you've given so much to is heading?
Okay, well, firstly, I was at Tulane graduation on Saturday, and we gave a honorary degree to a famous individual researcher that had a background in computer science and artificial intelligence. And as soon as they mentioned that, the entire auditorium at the Superdome started booing. Yeah. So these kids absolutely hate AI. And AI is...
Which is not the case in China for the same demographic.
There's an article in today's paper about Eric Schmidt, who had the same experience at University of Arizona. But AI is one of the disruptive elements that is exciting in that it's just like 1995 in terms of the ramp and the transition that we're on. And so for us at Advent, we started something about 7 years ago that we called Advent Labs. So AI, Advent International, and we actually started with the JV with your predecessor, Kogo, which led us to then say, no, we need to do our own thing. And so version 2 of Advent Labs, this is before the sort of big bang gun moment of ChatGPT.
ChatGPT 3, because 2 and 1 were under the radar.
Yeah, and so we've hired about 25 data scientists, started Advent Labs, and the second iteration was a spectacular failure. We had hired all these guys from hedge funds that didn't have that same focus and ethos, and so we're on version 3 right now. But it's really exciting because today we've built some tools. We're using AI in ways that are, very exciting from the standpoint of being able to do primary work that you couldn't have dreamed about. But we've also...
For your investment committee, does an AI have a same vote as one of your colleagues?
Well, no. We created a chat. We do have an AI robot that sits on investment committee so that we're feeding all the information through that and hopefully can learn from our mistakes, learn from what we've done well and not well. But this has been an evolutionary process, as we're kind of building this. Thank you.
So I flew in on a red eye this morning, and last night I was with Chad. And for those of you who don't know who Chad Hurley is, Google TV was a thing, but Google couldn't make it work. And a guy named Chad created YouTube, and YouTube was bought, and the rest is history. So I was with Chad last night, and that's his daughter, and she was born the same day, same time that Chad started YouTube. And I started talking to the daughter, and she's like, I'm loving college. It's just the best. And she is a Tulane student.
Love it.
And this segment, I want to just explore your passion for Tulane. So what are we looking at? And this is at your home where you grew up. This is your living room in Alabama.
Again, I apologize in advance. So these are pictures from Tulane. So those are hard hats. That's a dedication for a building that we were part of.
Is that dad all the way on the left?
Yeah, that's
and
mom, dad.
Yeah.
That's my lovely wife, Marion, right there.
Was it St. Patrick's Day?
No, that's Tulane. Everything's green.
Oh, okay.
So
And then
we're the green wave.
And then was this last year? You given the graduation?
I
address?
do the same thing now as the chair of the board. So
Yeah.
I open the graduation ceremony. So I just did the same thing in the same robe on Saturday.
And you made a commitment to students who are graduating for internships or career support?
Well, this is something that, that I'm really proud of. It's something Marion and I were thinking about. And so we built something, an internship initiative, so that basically if you come to Tulane, every student is basically offered or guaranteed an opportunity for a paid internship. And so the idea is that there are a number of different opportunities. We're trying to bring the best employers to campus. We're also helping people create unique internships. And in the world of AI, where it's so hard for entry-level jobs, those are the ones why people are booing AI, because it's changing the landscape for entry-level type of opportunities.
So is this a football game?
That's a football game, and I love how he goes so quickly. So keep
but I want to
keep
get
it
to
punchy.
these guys.
So
I want to get
this
to
is
these guys.
this is Mike Fitz. He's the president of Tulane. He's amazing. This was at the college football championship last year. So if you asked a trivia question, which is the first team in Louisiana to go to the college football playoffs, it would be Tulane, not LSU. So little nugget there.
All right. So this is mom. During COVID, how did
this is a crazy thing. So mom's creative. So she was an interior decorator. She had all these fabric samples from 1,000 years, and she started covering like antlers and deer's heads, and then selling them. And they
Do you have any in
became
your house?
really popular. So she sells
Does
these.
she name them, personify them?
No, people love them.
Yeah.
So
all right. So who's this? And
that's
what
Marion.
state
That's
is
in
she?
front
Is
of
she
our
from,
house. This is
Alabama also.
No, she's from Texas. So and this is the night before we left. So yeah, that was our last night in Weston. We sold the old time house, moved down into the city.
Yeah. And
that's just fun stuff. So you're
this,
just showing. Like these are fun.
Is that W State?
This is music concert together with Marion for
Wyoming,
fun out in Jackson Hole.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like what?
So this is daughter and dad.
That's my oldest daughter, Sophie, and then her getting married. So she got married in 2021. Luckiest thing.
Who performed at the wedding? Did you?
We had a country music guy, Toby Keith, that came on the second day, and
then after the wedding, this happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's our granddaughter. That's my second daughter, Olivia. That's my youngest daughter, Bridget, and that's Jim Atwood.
Okay. So, Jim, do you know that that's you?
Yeah.
Are you wearing the same shirt? No, different shirt. All right, and then is this you? Yeah. Yeah. Are you a lawyer? Yeah, a recovering lawyer, right? And then Navy SEAL. Do you still get called up as a Navy SEAL? No, you're retired. Okay, Navy SEAL retired. And then this is not a Tulane game.
That's an Alabama football game with.
And which games have you been to more, Tulane or Alabama?
I plead the fifth on that.
Okay, all right, okay. And then this is
that's the Griffin family together with us, other friends out west. City Year.
Yeah. Have you heard of it? Did you do City Year?
I did not do it, but Mary and I got involved.
I know somebody could sneak you in if you want to do it.
We got involved 35 years ago with Jimmy and his family, and so obviously your wife is now the executive director, which is amazing, and it's fantastic.
Thank you for your philanthropy and leadership. Okay, so at the beginning we showed this slide, and this is your friend, and these kind of things make you pause and kind of evaluate life and appreciate, what you've had and where you're going. Maybe tell a little story about this, and then I want to transition to your friends coming up and celebrating you, because you're pretty special.
The only thing I'd say about this is Jimbo. We were great friends from first grade through working in New York together, and then That's at his daughter's wedding. He passed away at age 59, and so this is just obviously what everyone here knows, just the importance of great friendships.
So now, what I want to do is, this is like wrestling. You tag someone in. Super fly snooker or something, he would tag someone in. So I'm going to tag in life partner. So
okay.
you use it however you want.
Hi, sweetie.
That old saying, for better, for worse, but never for lunch.
Thank you for coming.
I have a question for you. But I think it's just interesting because we have 4 kids. We have a son, who you met, guy with the beard, and 3 daughters. And all of our kids are in that, this time in their lives, their mid-20s, late 20s, where they are really thinking hard about their career choices, what that looks like. It looks different for them at this point than it did for us. We really didn't have choices. We just did what the next thing you could do, which is take the job, and we moved to Boston, and he was in school in Philadelphia. I was making $13,000 a year at public television, and that was our income. But if
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I hold that over your head a lot.
Yeah.
But if you were to give, I see a lot of young people in this room right now. I think one thing you've done beautifully is that work-life balance. Not all in the same day. I think that's really hard for people to realize that any given day it's not going to be balanced. But over the course of a career and a lifetime, you have. And maybe you could talk a little bit about what that looks like to you or feels like, or maybe give some advice. And because I think as women, right, as young women in the workforce, you get asked that question. I don't know if a lot of men in an interview get asked, how are you going to, or if you're asking for advice, it's the work-life balance. I think, historically men have just been expected to maybe not have work-life balance, maybe have work-life balance. I think it's changing. So anyway, just if you could talk a little bit about what you think some of the keys, because obviously we've been married, next week it's 37 years.
Yeah.
And we almost didn't have a honeymoon because of that internship that happened. But anyway, that's my question.
If you're doing a very complicated job that you love, you never feel like you work a day in your life. So you've heard that before. But it's also important to realize that it's a marathon. And so the idea that you're going to work so you have enough money so that you don't have to work anymore is not the message. The idea is that, basically find a pace. So you don't want FaceTime where people are just trying to show up in the office, and you don't want, if you're not involved in that, because you will be in a 24/7 sort of environment on something that matters, and you have to put those hours in. But when you're not in that, trying to have the environment, and that is hard to do because everyone's ambitious and driven, but that's the advice, which is just, it's a marathon, so focus on your family. When people are going through that, they're looking for people that have been able to juggle some of those things, and it's not easy. And I'm a girl dad, so with 3 daughters, I care a lot. They're all working hard, and so trying to see that they can find the opportunities that they're feel fulfilled in.
Let's have Gabriel tag in. You two are such a great
Thank you, sweetheart.
couple. Inspiration.
This is so interesting. This is not an 8-minute TED Talk. And thank you all for hanging in there. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it should be on.
Is it on?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
Okay, let me just say this guy. So Gabriel is one of only 2 men in naval history that was a Top Gun pilot and then went on to become a Navy SEAL. Because if you become a SEAL, and if you want to be a SEAL, they say, we've just invested $100 million to make you a carrier-based pilot, and you lose your wings if you don't make it through BUDS. And Gabriel said, no, that's fine, I'll do that. So pretty extraordinary guy, and with my partner for 15 years at Advent.
I appreciate that, David. Look, it's an honor to be here, and honestly, you've got hundreds and thousands of people that look up to you. that could have easily been here, and I'm privileged to have been here. And I will say that I've been fortunate my whole career, as David kind of mentioned, having been part of pretty top-notch firms, whether it was being on a carrier pilot or in the SEAL teams, is all that. But I've honestly never been part of a leadership team that would rival you. So I'll just say that up front. I know it's a partnership, is everything. If my wife will be 31 years in a couple of months, so I know that Marion gets at least 51% of the credit.
That's having that right is a big part.
I'll just tell one quick story. So I was at a private equity firm in Boston. It was I won't name the firm, but it was one of the firms up there with an S. And it's a great firm, actually, and that's how I met Mr. Westra, because he was one of our lawyers when I was there. A tough place, and private equity is not an easy environment, right? And so after about 3 years, I figured out that life's a little too short. I've been through enough surf zones and tortures and all that, going through training, that I wanted to do something bigger and better. And I was fortunate to have met Advent International and David there. And I think of David as like having saved me in private equity, and having gone from the S firm to the big A firm there. I remember telling him one time, and I asked him, I go, hey, over at that other place, if you survive for 10 years, they're going to give you like a few weeks off in the summer, like a sabbatical. And David goes to me, he goes, the best thing about being at Advent is it's like being a sabbatical. You don't need to give sabbaticals because it's such a great place to work. And so my question to you really is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, is that culture, to me, is like the defining kind of how you define success and how you can do really well with a firm. And I think David's one of those people where the good person wins. And it's tough in private equity, having been in it for almost 20 years and started another private equity firm a few years ago, that to have a true partnership where people don't really leave unless you run for Senate and start another business. But it's hard to have a true partnership at a private equity firm. And somehow you at Advent, through Peter Brook as well, but you've figured out and got the secret sauce and cracked the code about how to really succeed and you kind of touched on it, where people love to come to work. And people could work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they still love to come to work. And I think it's almost a miracle to do something like that.
Well, one, I really appreciate those words. They mean a lot, Gabriel. Obviously, you were a big, big part of our success for a long period of time. And I think part of what people like is being self-directed. So if you're developing the ideas that you're leading, that feels fine. If you feel like you're under the thumb of somebody and they're saying, do this, this, and this. And so the idea is trying to ignite that fire in each person and say, you figure it out, be amazing. Go be the very first person to do this type of investing, or go be the first person to figure this out. But also just, having a culture where, you want to win together, play as a team. It's not going to be big egos. I mean, we take a lot of pride. We're still a secret. You haven't heard much about Advent, despite our size. And I think that's A-okay.
I appreciate it. I'll say that if we have our first grandchild and it's a son, I will name it David if you run for president.
Thank you, Gabriel. I'm not a Navy SEAL. While Gabriel was flying jets in the Navy, I was at University of Vermont eating French fries and gravy. So thank you for your service. This is more just kind of an appreciation and gratitude toward the Mussafers. And I'll tell you two quick stories. We've heard a lot of just amazing things of what David's been able to build within the business, but what he's also able to build within the culture. But being under the umbrella as being a friend of the Mussafers, I'll give you a couple quick examples. Probably about 10 years ago, my nephew died in college, and it was just a tragic, tragic event. My wife and I kind of came to the forefront to, do all of the planning that you had to do within a week. And my wife's sister decided they wanted to do the service at their house. And so this was in November. Early December, we get a big snowstorm. We're out there sweating, like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to put the tent? Where are we going to put the heaters? And, and all of a sudden, we also had to, shovel all this. And I turn around, and there's David. I didn't ask him to come. I didn't even know he knew exactly what was going on, but David was there just to grab and this gets a little emotional, but to just grab a shovel and help out and do whatever needed to be done. And that's David Mussafer. And that's just the kind of guy he was, and that's the kind of guy that I'm sure Gabriel worked for.
Jimmy, go slow. I'm kidding.
I'll try to. Yeah, he's such a super person. But and then in the family, the whole family kind of thing. Just to touch on his wonderful wife Marion. So back in COVID, my wife might have been the first one in Massachusetts to get COVID, right? And so you remember back then, it was just like nobody really knew what was going on. Nobody knew whether you could come in within 100 feet of the person or you're going to get COVID. We happened to live in this corner in Dedham, and when people heard that my wife had COVID, they would like drive via Needham because they might come close to where we are in Dedham. And all of a sudden, coming right in the front door was Marion, David, come on, walking right in with, all of the things that we needed, the masks, the oxygen, all of that stuff that we didn't know whether we needed or not. But that just tells you a little bit about what it's like to be their friends. And that's the kind of people they are. So I don't have a question for you, David. This is more appreciation and gratitude
Jimmy,
to you, Marion, and your family.
Thank you.
Jim, we have another Jim, and Jim, bring us home.
Jim Westra, an absolute legend in the Boston community, philanthropic, but has been one of the keystone figures in the legal profession here in Boston, worked with virtually every private equity firm here. If you go to any shop, Berkshire, Tom Lee, Summit, they would cite how fortunate they were to work with Jim Westra.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, David.
As we have been incredibly fortunate.
Thank you, David. David, I used to know Peter Brook quite well. David put his picture up on the screen there. Peter and I were good friends because we were on the board of the Boston Symphony together. And Peter knew I was a lawyer. He said, you really got to meet these guys from Advent. So he introduced me to David. David came up to me a little bit later and said, how would you like to work for us? I said, thanks, but no thanks. He asked again the next year. I said, thanks, but no thanks. And I said, you're probably not going to ask again, are you? So I eventually went to work with Advent for about 10 or 12 years as a general counsel and managing partner, and it was just a great experience. You've heard a lot about David's leadership. I would echo all of those comments. As David said, I worked with a lot of private equity firms in Boston and nationally, and some of those are led by not very nice people. But Advent was always a great place to work, and it really went right back to David. He has a management style that is very inclusive, very welcoming, very demanding, but in an appropriate way. And when I told David I was going to retire, he said, gee, I always thought we'd go out like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I said, well, David, it didn't work out very well for them, as you may recall. So David is, this whole program is on innovation. David has been innovative, to say the least, the way he built the Advent model, the way he's led the firm, and I'm just very grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for doing this, John. This was really fun. So.